This is FCA's Beyond the Game, where faith meets sports. We go beyond the post-game sound bites to real conversations with coaches and athletes who lead by example in every game, match, meet, or moment. We're glad you're here. Now, let's go beyond the game.
Welcome back to Beyond the Game. Thanks for joining us. We're excited today to be joined by the Pure Athlete guys, Brad and Britt. Guys, thanks for joining us today.
We're excited to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Mike.
Well, for those that aren't familiar with Pure Athlete, why don't you all start off, kind of give us the quick rundown of what is Pure Athlete?
You want me to start?
You're the older one. You go ahead and start.
Somehow that gets every one of our podcasts. Yes.
We'll put that part out.
Well, Pure Athlete is, it's an organization that we started about 4 years ago. We have three partners: Jeff Rancour, who's not here with us today, but he played Major League Baseball for 12 years. Brad and myself, and in our team, and we are focused on youth sports. And our mission really is, as we look at this whole world of youth sports, it's just a crazy, chaotic world, and really challenging for parents to navigate, and for kids, and it's becoming a dominant part of life. And so we came along and said, we want to provide content and we want to provide perspectives to help folks navigate that world of youth sports in a healthy way, pursuing their goals, but doing it in a way that they can become the best versions of themselves. We say on and off the court.
That's good. Anything to add from
the content we do is through a podcast, just like we do.
Yeah.
We do podcasts. We have a YouTube channel, social media, a newsletter. We do live events, and just all of our backgrounds. This is a kind of a, Britt's got 4 kids. I got 6 kids. Jeff's got 4 kids. We've been through this, or we're going through this. And so it's something that's personal with us, and it's something that we felt that,
It's a passion project.
it's a passion project. Yeah. It's a mission that we feel like there's a need out there, and we want to deliver this content to hopefully, inform parents and inspire kids.
Excellent. You mentioned background, so catch us up. Kind of, what are your backgrounds? Brad, start us off. Like, what before Pure Athlete? What was your world about?
Well, I was a coach's son, so I grew up in this whole environment. Loved it. Think coaches are, I know you guys do. I think I think it's the greatest job in the world, the greatest title in the world. Was in sports marketing for close to 20 years, selling corporate partnerships for great brands like the NCAA and the SEC, and then started my own company in 2001, focusing on high school sports and sponsorships. And then when I sold that company in 2015, God has a great sense of humor and led me to be a high school athletic director at a Christian school. And that's kind of where a lot of this of my passion has come from, being a dad, going through it with my kids, and then also being an AD and seeing other families go through that and see just how much stress, how much anxiety, dealing with injuries and things like that. And so that's really, I would say it's an expertise, but it's experience and it's wisdom from a lot of mistakes that I've made and a lot of mistakes I've seen people make.
Britt, what about you?
Yeah. As Brad said, I'm a little older than him, but just a couple of years.
So nicely. He put it so nicely.
But I'm a native Atlantan. I worked in big corporate for many, many years, in a marketing leadership role, brand leadership role. Left that and started my own business about 20 years ago. Really in the whole world of video production and event production, big national sales conferences and things like that we produced. And in the midst of that is I have 4 kids, and they're all grown now. I'm actually a grandpa now. That happened about 7 months ago, which is an exciting phase of life.
Yeah.
But in the midst of all that, all my kids played sports. My daughters, who are my oldest, really played sports from a rec standpoint and just for fun, and loved it. They played a little high school tennis. But my boys, who are twins and they're 24 now, they just graduated from college, and they work with Pure Athlete. but they were kind of all in athletes from the get go, played every sport, but ended up specializing in high school in tennis. One of them went on to play Division I tennis. One of them burned out at the end of high school. And so we kind of went through everything, traveled all over the place with tennis, and experienced a lot of great things and a lot of really challenging things, which caused me to end up writing a book at the end of all that during COVID. None of us had a lot to do for a while, so that's what I did. And Brad and I had been kind of talking about this idea with Pure Athlete for several years before that.
Well, it was not even that. It was just lunches that we had as dads going like, gosh, my son's, I'm supposed to go to Lake Point this weekend. This is crazy. We're going to miss this family thing. We're dealing with these injuries, or we're dealing with, just, mental issues and struggles there. And like, what do you think we should do? And we were looking for information. We were trying to, on internet and places like that, and talking to other people. And we talk about like, so many parents are misguided because they get most of their advice from other parents who are going through the journey with them, not those who've been through the journey already. And it changes. Even like getting advice from someone who went through it 10 years ago may not be as much help as someone who did it 4 years ago, because it just changes so much. But most parents were like us. We're kind of like, oh, well, I think, our kid's going to miss out if we don't do this, or we've heard that we need to do this for to make their high school team or to get possibly play in college. And that's kind of how the whole thing was birthed. It was just like, there should be somebody who does this.
Yeah.
And so that's how it happened.
Well, and Mike, I would add, we talk about a lot in our content about the problems in sports, but we do this because we love sports.
Yeah.
I mean, we think sports offer an incredible platform for teaching life lessons and for growth and all those types of things for our kids, not to mention just, getting out and having exercise and all that kind of stuff. So we love sports. We just think that the culture is pushing, youth sports in a direction that isn't healthy for families. And in from a financial standpoint, from a time standpoint, from a balance standpoint, oftentimes from a spiritual standpoint. And so we wanted to speak into that. We wanted to push back against some of that, and also offer some different perspectives from our experience.
I think that's huge. I think it's easy to point fingers, easy to say the system's broken. It's easy to say you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. But what you guys are doing, which I love so much, is you're actually providing solutions. You're providing options, providing opportunities that, hey, yeah, it is broken. Yeah, it is a mess. There are issues. Good luck with that. Here's some tools. Here's some things that we can do. That's why I love y'all's mission so much. You talk about, the state of sports today, but what do you think? How did we get here? Like, in your opinion, like, how did we get to the point where it is such a monster that it is?
It's the American way, probably, I guess. I think at some point, somebody had the idea. I mean, gosh, this is not something I've read, but this is just kind of anecdotal. I think somebody kind of said, "Hey, our kids are a little bit better than rec. Let's kind of, there was all stars, and then it kind of like, well, what if we created something even better?" And they were outliers, these travel teams, but everybody, growing up, it was like everybody played in their community. Everybody played rec ball until basically almost, middle school or whatever, at least. And so I think the creation of these travel and club teams, was the start of it, and then it became the norm. And the days of just like kids having fun playing in their neighborhood rec program or church program, kind of, it's still there, but it's a lot harder to resist just sticking out. And then I think secondly, just like anything else at every level, folks realize they can make a lot of money off of it. The numbers are huge. It's awesome, and then a lot of it is a little bit of an American thing too, is that we love winning. And so we're winning, at professional level, at college level, high school level, it's now filtered down to like winning at AU. It's like, and it's like, is that really, like, look, we're all competitive. We love to win, but at the same time, it's like, okay, is this the best thing for your kid? Is that the priority here, or is development, or is them having a great time and playing again next year? And so, that's just my thoughts.
No, I think those are the reasons. And the only thing I would add to that is our culture has become such a performance driven culture. And it's not just sports, it's in academics, and it's in, it's in music, it's in everything. And, we're constantly putting pressure on our kids to perform more and more and more and more. And there's a lot of repercussions to that. And that certainly plays out into sports. And, the one thing we do say a lot is most parents that we run across, have great intentions. They want their kids to have a great experience and they want their kids to become the best they can be. But they just don't have good information and they don't have good perspective. And all these other forces are pushing on them to do it this way. And so you begin to think, at 8 years old, I mean, we get these DMs all the time. Hey, I'm in Southern California and my son's playing baseball at 8 years old. And if he doesn't play, 12 months a year, he doesn't have a shot of playing in college. And we're like, no, you're out of your mind if you believe that. So that is just pervasive out there.
Yeah. I think what's so great about what you guys are doing, you're providing the voice for the counter argument, because so many voices are in these parents' ears and everywhere they look that you've got to play in this tournament, you got to sign up for this clinic, you got to do this, otherwise you're getting left behind.
Yeah.
And so it's easy. I mean, it's easy to fall into that. I mean, heck, we've done it. I've done it with my kids. It's like, yeah, we're going to do, we're not going to do this. We're going to be there. But then as soon as your kid's playing, I'm not going to miss church on Sunday. That's a rule. Well, there's this great opportunity on Sunday morning. Well, maybe this week it's okay if we miss this week. Well, then it turns into another. And so
I think that's okay. I mean, I think those situations, like it's when it becomes an every Sunday type of thing.
Yeah.
And it becomes like, and I think parents, the conversation yesterday, parents feel a little bit intimidated by the directors of these travel organizations, these coaches, to miss a practice or to miss. I remember when my kid was playing on an 11U travel team. We went to the beach for a week, and I felt so guilty that, we came back, we left late. The rest of the family went down there, but we left late because of a tournament, and we came back early because of a tournament. I'm like, he was 11 years old.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, well, he was batting third or whatever, and if I come back, he's going to be batting eighth or ninth because, as a punishment. And you're like, you're just trying to get perspective. But we love the fact that our kids have these big dreams, these big goals. Yeah. I mean, our daughters are musical theater kids, and they, you don't want to say, the odds of you making on Broadway are pretty slim.
Right.
You want them to go for it, but like, how do we get there in the healthiest way possible?
Yeah.
And so we're for that. We kind of want to just, like, at the end of this journey, like we talk about, we want to be the better versions of themselves than they were when they started, and we also want to continue to have a great relationship with them as parents.
That's a big thing.
Yeah. And at the end of this journey, which really, it happens, unfortunately, it happens the opposite a lot of times.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I wrote about and we talk about now is, what's the return on investment, in the sports thing? Because we as parents are spending thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, it's crazy. And the reality is that for 99.5%, there's zero financial return on investment.
Yeah.
So you have to say, well, what is it? What was the ROI? And, I think there is one if you're intentional about seizing the opportunities. And that return is life lessons, which translate to all of life for your kids learning how to be great teammates, your kids learning to be coachable, your kids learning to persevere through adversity, and become resilient, and on and on and on. But then the biggest return for me is, again, my kids are grown now, and you can come out of that journey with a better relationship or a bad relationship. And so we became really intent on, want to make sure that we have a good relationship, that all these times we travel, that they're building our relationship, and we're seizing those opportunities and those moments together in the car and so on and so forth. And we didn't do it. Yeah, we didn't do it perfect by any means.
No, I noticed that early on with my son. After a game, like the tendency, I'm coaching him, so the tendency is, hey, this is, you could have done this better. Here's what or great, or the reverse side. All I'm doing is talking about what he did great, but it's all based around that performance, like you're talking about. So I had to make a decision, like after the game, the ride home, we're not talking about the game. That's hard. Yeah. But that was so hard because I don't want him to forget this. I don't want to forget, but it's so important because it is about that relationship, especially if you're coaching your child. Like that is so hard.
It's the elephant in the car though too. It's hard. It's hard to pretend like what happened just didn't happen. Right. We're talking about like something else, but they don't want to talk about the game with us. I mean, most of the time. they want to move on. You know, they're tired, they're worn out, whatever it is, and so they really, yeah, you're right. They don't want to typically, unless they bring it up, great.
Yeah.
You know, but it's more of like, yeah, we just really like having. I love watching you play today. I had a blast watching you play today, and or picking out. It may have been, I don't know who one of the guests was talking about the, you know, really if you're gonna comment and do it later, but comment on the things they can control.
Yeah.
Like effort, body language, you know, not like the whole thing is like. And my younger was a baseball kid, and baseball was not something I was, you know, an expert at by any means. But they don't want to hear like, you know, your approach at the plate or your swing or anything like that. They're just like, man, I love the fact you were an amazing teammate today. You know, I love the fact that, man, when you struck out, you came back and like just you had a great attitude, you know, cheering everybody on and stuff like that, because that's stuff they can control.
But it is so hard. And it's so, and I can tell you from, you know, going to weekend tournaments, and the other really hard thing is sitting in the stands as a spectator and just your body language. If you can keep everything inside your mouth, you know, and you don't say anything, but your kids see everything. And it matters. And I prayed so hard so many times leading up to tournaments and things like that, just to be controlled. And I've said this many times on our show, and many parents in the community, the tennis community, would look at me and say, "Hey, he was really calm, Dad." Everything, I was just churning on the inside. And they might not see my shoulders shrug or like me look down when my son hit a bad shot, but my kids would see it and they bring it up.
Yeah.
So
That's huge.
it's hard.
Yeah, I'll call it a mistake. One year, my youngest was playing basketball, and I said, "Hey, I'm not going to coach you this year. I just want to I want to be a fan. I want to enjoy it." And I did not enjoy 1 second of it. And then I realized, like, especially because all kids are different, and I just see the difference in my 3 kids and how they react to certain things. Like my kids, he's in the corner, and you know, I'm yelling instructions. So if he tries to stop yelling at me, and I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry." You know, but like one son he needs. Oh yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Another one's like, "Would you just leave me alone? I can't concentrate. You know, all I hear is you yelling at me."
Right.
I wasn't yelling. Oh, yeah, I guess I was yelling. You know, but yeah, it's so hard. We just ultimately you want what's best for your kids,
You do.
and so but getting lost in the noise and how that affects your kids, your family. I mean, you know, you see these families every weekend. They're off traveling, at a tournament or at a showcase or whatever. And I've even had some families say, "Well, we love that. That's our forced family time."
Sure.
But you understand, my kid loves baseball. He loves nothing more than baseball. And well, it's like my kid loves ice cream.
Right.
You know what? I love taking him to get ice cream, but if we do that over and over again, we're going to have a problem.
Well, we've had one of our experts talk about though that it sounds great, but you're one of the messages you're sending your kid is that this family dynamic is dependent on like if our family, especially if it's a smaller family and there's like one child or two, but like our family dynamic is so dependent on your performance at all these tournaments, and then that kid, this pressure on that kid, not only to perform there, but to I think I have to make my parents happy, because if we have a good tournament, it's going to be more, it's going to be happier dinner, and we all traveled here together. And it's all about, and then also there's other issues too. But yeah, it was something that one of our experts brought up. I didn't even think about that.
That's huge. I've never thought about that. Yeah.
Am I the glue that's keeping this family, happy, because it's all about
this vacation depends on how long we make it in the elimination round. Like, oof, that's tough on a 10-year-old kid or anybody. Yeah, that's a great point. Well, I think we talk about some of the negatives. We see some of the things that are going on that we wish weren't going on. But what's the flip side of that? What are some things you're seeing in youth sports now, like the shift maybe that's taking place, what you guys are doing with your athlete? Like, what are some of the good things that you're seeing come out of it?
I mean, when we started doing this, I feel like there wasn't, well, let me back up. When I was doing youth sports parenting 10 years ago, when I was really in the midst of it, I mean, I never heard of specialization.
No.
And we were faced with it. I just never heard the phrase. And so I would say that, the discussions about all these things that are not healthy are much more pervasive today than they were even 5 years ago. And I think that's a really positive thing. I think parents are getting more information. not enough, but I think those things are being talked about way more today than they were in the past. I think there is a big movement. Um, there's a big movement around bringing fun back in. And what's the goal of sports and all those types of things being driven. We had a guy on our podcast a few weeks ago who's the director of the Aspen Institute Project Play, big youth sports initiative, and I would say he's been doing this for 15 years, and he's kind of a leading voice, and so there's a lot of work being done to kind of change the culture from the beginning, but it's really hard. I mean, this is a huge ship, and as Brad said earlier, it's a huge business,
Yeah.
and so you're pushing back against that. We kind of look at it and say we've part of our mission is to impact families, and part of our mission is to impact culture. And the impact and culture thing, if you look at it in holistically, it's like, how do you do that?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we kind of said, well, the way to do it is one family and one coach at a time.
That's it.
And so that's what we're trying to do. But I think, I just think there's more awareness today. There's not enough, and we're all fighting that battle. You guys are on the front lines of that.
Yeah.
We're on the front lines, and I think we just need to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say also that, I think there's been a healthy focus on mental health that maybe in the past wasn't there, and what to look for. Obviously you have it. It's very open to the kids who are really struggling in their sport, but also just of all the suicides that have happened, it seems like in college sports and with kids that you sit there and say, well, those kids have everything going for them. They're the elite athlete. They're the type A personalities, that they're the perfectionists. And so just that awareness for parents of just to keep an eye out and to have those conversations with your kid. I think the Christian community also is starting to push back a little bit. I think it was taken um, by surprise. The travel culture took the church by surprise a little bit, and they started realizing, oh my gosh, our regular attenders aren't attending as regularly as they used to. What is the reason for it, especially after COVID? And I think there's a lot more like what you guys are doing, like saying, hey, let's have a perspective about this. What is your goal in this? As believers, and so I think that's something we've seen in the last 4 years as well.
Yeah. And I think families understanding too, like, obviously it's best to be involved in your local church, best to be in church on Sunday, whenever the doors are open. That's option one, option A, right? But there are other options, and I think you brought it up earlier. Families feel like, okay, I either got to be in church every Sunday. I can't miss a single Sunday for a tournament, versus, okay, we're going to do this, special occasion, whatever, and not feeling that guilt of what have I done, but also finding ways, okay, there's other ways we can worship. We can worship wherever we go. We can have church wherever we need to. Still, yeah, best to be in your local church,
Yeah.
obviously. But, there's other ways to help your family, other ways to lead your family and connect them to the Lord. I mean, that's why I love what we do with FCA. We go where they are. That was the biggest enticement for me coming out of college. Was I was in ministry, but everything to that point was come to church, come to this, come to that. Well, yeah, we'll give a free iPad. Well, yeah, whatever we can do. We're going to have a, the Chubby Bunny game. Who can eat the most marshmallows, whatever. And with FCA, it was like, oh, I get to just show up on campus, be in the locker room, be on the field. I'm gonna meet you right where you're. Oh, I'm in.
Yeah.
Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And so figuring out ways through youth sports, and that's what we're looking at with FCA. How can we, through leagues, clubs, travel, all this, how can we find the ministry opportunities in that? Because I mean, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have seen that. I know, Pure Athlete isn't necessarily, a faith-based organization, but you are both men of faith. All three of you guys are men of faith. So that's a big part of what you do. I guess talk a little bit about that and how that has played a role and is playing a role in your mission with Pure Athlete.
Well, we were joking about this earlier, that we made the decision, like, not for this not to be a ministry, and because we wanted to reach as many people as possible, but we can't help but when we have the opportunity to share our faith, to share our testimony, that we do it. So we cross over that line a lot, and we love doing that. And then if we have an athlete or a coach or a guest that we know is someone of faith, someone's a Christian, we say, please share your testimony. And I mean, gosh, we had Kirk Cousins. We had a live event with Kirk Cousins at North Point Church here in Atlanta, and man, it was I mean, I would say 99.9% faith-based. It was like a revival in there. I mean, and we didn't have to tell him to do that.
Yeah, he was
He came in, loaded, and it was just, and so it was like, that's awesome. If God, if we prayed so much about what God wants to do with this, and um, if He wants it to go in that direction, then we're gonna ride along with Him, and it's awesome. So we definitely are. If anybody listens to the podcast or looks at any of our content, they know that we're believers, and it's our priority.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
Well,
great.
it's why we created this. At the end of the day, and all the things that we talk about are biblically based principles, and so
It helps a lot. I mean, if you've got the discernment and wisdom from the Holy Spirit, that's a good start.
That's always helpful. Yeah,
You're going to fight against that a lot, but still,
100%.
it's a good start.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it. I mean, we talk about on this show all the time, but just how the role that faith is playing, it's more prevalent in sports today on a bigger scale. It's always been there, but now like the lights kind of being shown on a little bit, and you hear from different athletes or whatever, and I mean, what I've always loved about sports, what I literally love about sports now is just the great unifier that it is. Like it breaks down so many barriers, it gives so many opportunities. I mean, that's the whole point of FCA. Like we use the vehicle of sports to talk about the Lord and to share Jesus and share the gospel and to disciple. Like that's what it's all about. And so just looking for any and every opportunity. And what I love about, what we're looking at with FCA sports, what you guys are doing, Pure Athlete, we're not waiting until middle school, high school, college age to be able to have those conversations that happen younger.
right.
And then the effect that has on the families, 8, 9-year-old kid playing, if we're able to minister in that world, well, mom and dad are going to pick up some of that. Grandma and grandpa may pick up some of that. How's that going to affect the family as a whole? That's a huge, part of what we do. And that's why I'm so excited. I'm excited for the sports world as a whole and how the Lord is being glorified and how it's happening, but just the opportunities that come from that for discipleship to happen, it's just opportunities are endless.
Well, and I think that's the charge that for parents is, is to step back, and the sports goals become so dominant in families. And, what are your values, as a family?
Yeah.
And what are your family goals? What are your parenting goals? And how do sports fit up under and support of that? And I think so often now the sports goals rise to the top, and it's not intentional. It's just an inertia
Right.
that the culture pushes and that we allow. But I think it's so healthy for parents, whether they be, parents that are together or single parents who are co-parenting, to step back and say, hey, what are we trying to build in our kids, and what do we want our family to be about, and how does sports fit into that? And, let's try not to compromise those things. And to your point about spiritual development earlier, yeah, it's great to be at church every Sunday if you can. If you're in high level sports, that's going to be hard. But, the goal is about, shepherding your kids' hearts, and pointing them to the Lord. And there's many ways to do that. Now, again, we are super supportive of being in the local church, but there are other ways to ensure that goal is pursued.
Yeah, I think if God would show parents where the sports journey ends when they get started, and say, hey, your daughter or your son's going to be really have a great time playing high school sports, or they're gonna play intramural sports in college, though. That's where it's gonna end. And so let's recheck it. And like, what are really your goals now for your kid? Knowing that, it should be that they become passionate followers of Christ. It should be they're a good husband or a good wife or great parents, and that they're leaders, obviously, and for the kingdom. And so, but I don't think that's the original. I don't think that's the goal when your kid is born to sit there and go, oh, I want him to play in the NFL.
Right.
But because our country, pushes kids into sports, which is great. It's such to get them active, and then you get caught up, and oh wow, he scored a touchdown, man, he may have a future in this, and you kind of get on that track, and it becomes a lot of fun. But if we're able to kind of have a crystal ball and see where he or she is really going to end up, and like Brett says, we know in our brains that 99.9% of these are not going to make money playing sports, but our heart's like, yeah, but we may be the 0.1%.
Exactly.
But if you really knew, and that's kind of, we also try to hope, I tell coaches all the time, don't ever squash anybody's dream, but give them, especially after puberty, give the family and that child, like, okay, you can do whatever you want to do, but here's probably the path it's going to take. You're probably gonna have to go Division II, or you're probably gonna have to walk on, or whatever. Knowing that, you don't need to do all this other stuff, knowing, because this is where your kid probably ceiling is right now. You don't need to go to every single showcase, because it's not going to help them. But a lot of times parents don't get that advice.
So it's that, go to the showcase. Oh, but also I provide these private hitting lessons. I think there's with 6 weeks of this at this price, I think it's, to your point earlier, it has been monetized, and it's a living, it's a way of life for a lot of people. So it you can't help but get caught up in that, just turning them in and turning them out. You're talking about parents earlier and just making decisions, and how to do that. I love the way we had David Pollock on, and the way he said it: make decisions before you make choices. It was so good. Get, as a family, what are the decisions we're going to make? We're going to do this, we're not going to do that, before the choice comes. And okay, we have a choice to go on this tournament or not this tournament, or whatever. Go ahead and beforehand make those decisions as a family. These are our non-negotiables, and then let that drive the choices that come along. That was such a good word, and that's a great. You have to be reminded of that. Remember that decision we made. That's going to be challenging, but I think that's such a good piece of advice. But
It is.
I think other, just practically, is there another piece? Any other advice you would give parents, like as they're trying to navigate this world that they're in with their kids, that just hey, if maybe focus on this or anything.
Two things I would say. One is, let them. Kids love to play.
Yeah.
Kids love to compete. They love to keep score.
Yep.
But when parents kind of get involved and try to organize everything, like my son would get so frustrated at recess when the teachers would try to make the teams organize. They let them work it out. Let them, like, they love going out to the playground and organizing themselves. So free play is such a concept. As long as they possibly can, let them play. Second thing I would say is, man, and David Pollock, actually, we interviewed David Pollock when my youngest was a junior playing baseball, and he said they have to own their journey. It's their journey. God wired them a certain way. Yeah, you're their parent, but you're not their coach. And we want them all to be Tim Tebow, but Tim Tebow was wired a very unique way, and I can't make my kid want to be Tim Tebow, in terms of doing 1,000 push-ups a day. And ultimately, he or she has to decide for themselves what this journey is going to be. And you can parent them the best you can in their sports journey. They got to own that.
Yeah.
And they got to decide what they want to do. And it was like an epiphany for me. It's because say, you know what? He's got this, and God's got him. So
I would say chill. I mean,
And cut.
seriously. I mean, I needed people to tell me that
Yep.
at times. So
good.
you just get caught up and you get excited, and or you get really disappointed, and all those emotions are going to happen. And and it's very easy. And again, I say this from experience, it's very easy to allow all of those things that are going on, especially when you're spending tons of money and tons of time and all this, to dominate the conversations at dinner, and dominate, every interaction you have with your kid becomes about, well, what'd you do today? Or what did you not do today? Or, are you prepared for this? Or so on and so forth. And, we're, I mean, we were good about this, but there are tennis tournaments over, over Thanksgiving, over Christmas, and people would schedule, everything around that. People give up vacations. We talk about this all the time for baseball tournaments or volleyball tournaments. So I'm not saying you should never do that,
Yeah.
but your kid, your kid is gonna, when they're 20 something, you say, what do you remember? In your teens, it's probably not going to be that tournament. It's going to probably be that week we spent at the beach, or these types of things. We sacrifice a lot of that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
For sports. So
yeah,
chill.
Brent and I
Just chill.
Brent and I talk is now that one of the hardest things as a parent is when your kid leaves the home. But one of the coolest things as an older parent is when they want to come back and hang out with you. And so, like, if you're parenting when they're 12 and think about, like, what can I do? What can my wife do? Or, to where when they actually have a chance to be adults and leave the house and have lives of their own, that they still want to be engaged with you, because that's the coolest thing. It's the coolest thing when and like you said, the conversations are usually not about the sports experiences or the plays. It's really about just the silly stuff that happens. I mean, that's what they want to come back to, so
I mean, that was outside of spiritual formation, that was our biggest goal as a parent. To say we want our kids, when they don't have to spend time with us and their siblings, we want them to want to. So, not exclusively, they need to have their own lives, but that was a big goal.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think too, one of the best things for a kid to learn from, but one of the hardest things as a parent to let them do is fail.
Mm.
They're going to learn so much more from their failures, but gosh, we don't want them to fail.
Yeah.
And we want to protect them.
Yeah.
I have a coach friend that way he said it is we used to have helicopter parents that were floating above and making sure everything was a go. He said now it's more lawnmower parents. He said they cut that perfect strip of grass and they want you to stay just on that perfect path
Yeah.
the entire time. And he said, I was like, God, I do that way too much. Yeah, it was so convicting, but it is hard. It's hard to just, let them pick themselves back up and dust themselves off. That has become a big challenge, but it's so needed.
I think a lot of it's because our parents weren't super engaged. They
Yeah,
they
all the
they
time,
were
sure.
they were and so we remember the times we wish they were more engaged, and so we probably just it's the pendulum has just swung so hard. Like we're like, okay, I'm not gonna do what my parents did. I'm gonna try to be engaged, and I'm gonna try to help create this path that lets them not have hurt. Which is impossible to do. But we've taken it to the extreme probably.
Yeah, we've talked about it in the terms of kind of like the lawnmower thing is, parents they want to prepare the path for the road for their kids, not their kids for the road. And it's such a disservice. And you're doing it, you think, out of love,
Right.
but it's such a disservice not to let them go through hard things. And and sports brings up some of those hard things, and it's painful
All the time.
Yeah. But yeah, and learning to deal with failure. And I've talked many times about, I had these twin boys and they're wired very different. And one of them was wired very with a lot of belief and confidence, not cockiness, but he just believed, and he had success early, and that helped that. And the other one is just always been very negative. And so when he made a mistake on the basketball court or something, it would affect the next two plays. Same with tennis court. And that whole, teaching your kids that failure's okay.
Yeah.
And is so huge. If I could do it all over again, I would have been way more intentional at really early ages of leveraging sports to teach kids that, go for it. You're going to fail and it's fine. No, it doesn't matter. I just think that's such a huge life lesson that's right there for the taking in sports.
And when I've interviewed young folks when they're interviewing for a job, one of the questions I ask them is talk about a time you failed. And if they can't think of one, they're lying, but then I'll like, okay, what did you learn from it? How did you come back from it? Because they're going to fail. I was talking to my son this morning, talking about like, you're going to make mistakes in this internship. You're going to just admit to them, find out how you can do it better. But that's part of life, and it's going to be part of their first job and their jobs to come and marriage and things like that. And so if you can do it in an environment where you hopefully have a great coach and great families around them, and hopefully parents that are believers and can incorporate biblical principles into it, man, it's going to prepare them so well. Taking that failure and preparing them for what they're going to do with in life was good.
You brought up David Pollack, and we had David on a few weeks ago, and he talked about this very thing. He's like, we pray for our kids to fail while they're in our house.
Pray hard.
Pray for hard. Pray all those types of things.
He's like, we got it.
Yeah. Yeah, they do get it.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, it's ultimately, helping our kids, helping all kids, helping all athletes realize that their identity is not in their performance.
Right.
And it's so hard. But then that's okay, my identity is not in performance, then what's it in? Well, I know a guy, your identity, if your identity is in Jesus, if it's in Christ, that changes everything.
Yeah.
So I love that. being a part of our mission to be able to show these athletes, these kids, like ultimately that is what it's all about, and helping them find that. And I've been so many stories of high performing athletes that are struggling. They're their anxiety is taking over. They're, you know, wrapped up, and they've got everything they should ever want, but yet they're still miserable because that's the one thing they need they don't have yet, and that's the Lord. So
that hole.
that's it.
And
That's it.
he's there on the ball field, and he's there when you're injured, and he's there after sports, and he never leaves us. And so yeah, that's so important.
So good.
Yeah.
So I guess, talking about parents and making decisions, making choices, a lot are wrestling with, playing for fun in the rec world, and their kids are being recruited to be on this travel team or play in this club or whatever. As they're trying to navigate those decisions, what advice would you guys give them in making those decisions?
Well, it's hard to hear, but God's wired them already. Their DNA is gonna play out eventually. And I always felt like my number one goal is not to let my kid burn out.
Yeah.
And so I think it's okay to exhale. If your kid's going to be an Olympian, it doesn't matter if they miss that one season of whatever, swimming or whatever, they're going to end up being an Olympian because they're gifted that way. I think it's fine to take a break. The bigger pressure comes from, I think most parents, it's really to make their high school team.
Yeah.
And so that's really where the pressure comes. But again, it's a long game, and before puberty, you can miss a lot of things, and it's not going to really matter. Maybe when they about to start high school, that's when you got to commit to something there. But I think it's fine to take a break. What do you think?
I think earlier I said chill. So I'm going to stick with that answer.
Maybe put an exclamation point on this time.
I don't think, as he said, especially before puberty, you're not going to have a lot of make or break decisions. We think we do, but it's just not the truth. And I would go so far as to say also, if your kid is pushing you to, I want to play year round, I want to do these things, well, we don't always say yes to our kids.
Right.
I mean, we see things in a different light than they see them. And sometimes, if our kid wants, at 8 years old, ice cream for dinner every night, we're going to say no, because that's not healthy.
Yeah.
And I think we have to do some of that with sports too. They'll say, no, you need to take a break,
Yeah.
and we need to focus on something else.
That's good. I think the age too is such a critical part. Before puberty, after puberty. One of my favorite sayings that a friend of mine, we both coached a lot of middle school sports, and just the drastic difference from that 6th grade year to 8th grade year. And the way he framed it, he said, "You know what the difference was today?" And that's what I say. He said, "Hairy legs." Their guys had hairy legs and our guys didn't. I'm like, oh man, that is so good.
Look at the difference between a high school freshman and a high school senior.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different kid. It's a grown man or woman, and that's
Yeah.
So if your kid's a freshman that's little, and just hang in there, because don't judge them based on a grown man or woman.
I would add one thing, and that is, if you're in a travel organization or a club or whatever that is pushing your kids over the top, I mean, there are other clubs, there are other organizations. You guys have organizations that are trying to be very balanced. There are other coaches even in that organization. So your lot in life is not set. You can step away and find something different.
Yeah. You're not alone. There are other options.
Right.
And it's going to be okay. And above all, just chill.
Right. Yeah.
Just chill.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. Been a great time. Really appreciate y'all. I guess share with us where everybody can find you guys if they want to learn more.
Yeah, pureathlete.com. And all the different platforms that you find social media and podcasts, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate you having us, and appreciate what all you guys did. You know, amazing ministry, and thanks for all you do.
Yeah, that's great. Follow Pure Athlete. Follow along with Atlanta FCA and Beyond the Game, and be sure to like and subscribe. Guys, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.